Welcome to episode 6 of Wavebeam, the official podcast of the Metroid database. I am your host, Ryan Barrett, also known as Infinity's End. With me, we have Devin Monans, also known as Capcom, the site director.
Hi, guys.
We also have Brian Bakaikai, also known as Aurora Unit. He is a contributing editor for the sites.
Hey.
Then we have Tim Morse, also known as Rondus18, our web programmer.
Hello.
And in spirit, we have Michael Ingram, our newest editor to the site. He's also known as James Pierce. He says hello. He will be typing with us instead of talking, unfortunately. Also, unfortunately, we do not have Jesse D with us today. He could not make it. The subject of today's podcast is Metroid Prime 2, and I know all you guys are so excited to talk about Metroid Prime 2. But before we actually start talking about the game, first off, I guess we should apologize. It's been about 10 months since we did the last episode of Wavebeam, episode 5, but I guess it's no big loss there. But
well, it's not like there was any new Metroid games released.
Right. It's so hard to talk about, make a new podcast when there's such little content coming out. We're going to be talking about Metroid Prime 2, its history and significance, but we're going to be talking, let's get a little information about the site, what's going on around there. Coming up, I guess when you will be listening to this podcast, it's going to be on the 16th, which is actually the 16th anniversary of the Metroid database. And we are very excited to kind of give this podcast to you guys as our official birthday present. And of course, with every birthday, we also have unveiled our latest contest. So I will hand it over to Devin, and he can tell you all about our newest contest.
Okay, so for our contest this year, let me just start with the prizes because it kind of leads into it. So there were a couple big, couple Kickstarter projects that were funded this year. One was Ukiyo-e Heroes, which is a reimagining of various video game worlds and Japanese woodblock print form. And the other is the 30 Days of Zero Suit Samus by Chris Furness. And if you remember from last year, he was doing one of these watercolors a day for an entire month, describing what Samus does on her day off. And so, using some of the ad revenue that we get through the site, we helped fund those two Kickstarter projects, and the swag that we get from those, from funding that, is going towards the contest. So I was looking at what prizes we were going to have available, and decided for the theme for this one is basically to reimagine the universe of Metroid using a unique art style of your choosing. So this is, the exceptions to this is you cannot have your style be photorealism or illustration or manga or anime. So basically any art styles that the Metroid series has been depicted in through official concept art, or if you go take a look at the site, screenshots from any of the video games, the comics and manga that we have on the site. Basically, if your artwork looks anything like that, we're not interested in that for the concept. We're interested in new styles of art. So basically, outside of those, you can reimagine Metroid in any style that you want. So, for instance, you could reimagine it in terms of classic Egyptian art, surrealism. You could invent your own art style. Alien sculpture. Basically anything that you want that's in your imagination goes in there. But what we're looking for to go on the themes So like with the Japanese woodblock prints from Ukiyo-e Heroes, that's a pretty unique style. There hasn't been a whole lot in terms of video game fan art, certainly not Metroid fan art that looks like that. And the same thing with the 30 Days of Zero Suit Samus, the stylistic watercolors. So basically, for this contest, you think up however you want to reimagine the world of Metroid and create your art through that. And this can be a 2D print, a 3D model. You could go out and sculpt something. If you wanted to do like, I don't know, like Metroid the Ice Ballet, well, you could record yourself doing that. But just as long as we get a 2D image that sort of best represents your style that you've chosen, that is sort of like the core of your submission. So that's what we have for the contest, and the prizes are going to be looking pretty good. You know, they should be pretty awesome, and so on. Real excited to see what everybody comes up with.
I got a question for you. So, what would you say about people doing paint-overs if they used, like, a reference? Because I know people are going to think about doing that. If they, like, took some official artwork and, like, plopped it together and then painted over that, would that be disqualified or what? No, I'm assuming we want original art, as we have in the previous contests.
Yeah, the original art. So something that you yourself have come up with. So no like tracing over existing art or anything like that. Just coming up with your own idea.
All right, thanks, Devin. Sounds great. I can't wait to see all the new entries for the contest. How long is that going to last, by the way? When are we going to be cutting off entries? Have we decided?
Probably how we've always done it, which is going to be December 31st, so end of the year.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we'll have like 2.5 months. Sounds good.
Yeah, you can completely choreograph a Metroid on Ice in that time.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. Can't wait for that. All right, and next thing I want to talk about is the bestiary. We've been slowly but surely and steadily adding new entries to the bestiary. And we are, it's one of the best features we have on our site. It's kind of like something you can't really find anywhere else on the internet. But the good news is we are going to be unlocking the primes, and anyone who's listening to this now will be able to look forward to that. And we are going to be actually unveiling those on the 10th anniversary of Metroid Prime, which is on the 8th of November. So on that day, we will be releasing we will be unlocking the bestiary section for Metroid Prime 1. All the artists, well, most of the artists of the bestiary have been already working behind the scenes, making new entries for you guys. I've seen some of the art, and it already looks really fantastic. So definitely look forward to that. And of course, after we release and finish all of Metroid Prime 1, we'll be moving on to the other primes, and then Other M, of course. The next thing I want to talk about is Metroid Blast. So really kind of on the edge. It's not quite a Metroid game, an official Metroid game, but it shows that Nintendo is still interested in kind of using the Metroid series, which is always a good thing. Hey Tim, how do you feel about Metroid Blast?
Well, it looks to me like it's going to be some sort of mini-game with the Metroid skin on it. Would I be correct in that?
More or less, I would say yes.
Then I would say I don't feel that strongly about it.
Okay. Are you going to be getting a Wii U?
If I have more money, than I do right now, and by the time that happens, I might. But presently, no plans.
Yeah. I actually, I kind of feel the same way. I feel like, even though the lineup is interesting, like not just Nintendo Land, but the other games that are going to be unveiled,
there's
I
Mario.
feel like I can wait. What was that?
Oh yeah, some of the other games coming out. So like, there's the Mario, there's Tekken, there's Zombie U, which that's a really weird title.
Yeah.
And I actually pre-ordered a Wii U. They're going to be very hard to get now on launch date because I guess they have sold out pretty much everywhere for the pre-orders. You might be able to line up outside of like Target or Best Buy or something on launch day, but I'm still personally reserved about Metroid Blast, mainly because it does look sort of like a shooting game where you can fly around the spaceship, work with co-op to either destroy the ship or fight off all the enemies. But, whether or not shooting is the core of sort of like the Metroid experience, basically, if you're just shooting a bunch of enemies, is that going to feel like Metroid? Or is there going to be, do you need some exploration or something like that involved? I don't know if anybody here has played Metroid Prime Hunters with multiplayer mode.
I have.
Yeah, I played it quite a bit.
Okay. And then there was a multiplayer mode on Prime 2.
Which we will be getting to later in the podcast. But for now, I think Metroid Blast, they do... It is more than just a death match. I think there's some parts where you have to fight a big Mecha Ridley, and there's maybe some tower defense elements in there. Like, they have these waves of Jeemers that come at you, and you have to blast them, which I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, of course, it's not a real Metroid game, but it still shows us that Nintendo still wants to, they still want to embrace the Metroid saga, which, there's always been these rumors ever since Mom released that they weren't going to make any more Metroid games, because it failed so horribly in sales. I did want to mention Michael, it seems like he's looking forward to it. He says Katsuya Eguchi is a good director at Nintendo, so he thinks it's going to be good. I'm assuming Katsuya Eguchi did Wii Sports, is that right?
Animal Crossing.
Animal Crossing, and Wii Sports.
Well, I've got a question for you guys as well. So, for the games that they were showcasing for Nintendo Land, they focused a lot on the Metroid Blast, so the Metroid minigames, which is actually kind of surprising because normally you would think, Zelda is their flagship
maybe it
title.
Looked the best. Maybe it was like the most flashiest, and you always want to put your best foot forward when you show off a game. That's how I looked at it. But I did notice that, they did seem to focus on Metroid Blast first and foremost. So maybe they think, I don't know, maybe they're trying to cater to more hardcores. Michael says he thinks Zelda was at E3 and it was time to focus on Metroid. That's very possible. Brian, what do you think?
From what they were saying, they made it sound like it was probably the most in-depth mini-game out of the bunch, so I think that could have been why they were highlighting it, because of the multiple modes and maybe just having a little bit more freedom in terms of the experience and how you go about playing it in the different modes. So it sounded like it could end up being kind of like the highlight attraction, perhaps, inside of the whole set. So I'm pretty excited for it. I mean, it's, not really a Metroid game per se, but, to have a nice kind of cute me type of Metroid themed minigame is, there's never any harm with it. So
Sure.
it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I was thinking how many people are going to be making a Samus head, or a Samus Mii, so they can use it on
Armstrong
the head
Houston.
of the Mii.
Armstrong
that?
Houston, Captain Orangebeard.
Yeah, and then we'll have like Armstrong Houston and all that, and Anthony Higgs, and I'm sure everyone will make that because you're basically running around with a power suit. So I thought that was pretty cool. I'm sure everyone will have their own little idea of what the official Samus Mii will look like. So yeah, I mean, it's a cool little thing. I personally am looking forward to playing it. It's definitely not a console sale thing. I'm not going to buy a Wii U just because it's got Metroid Blast on it, but I still look forward to it, at least for the multiplayer. Hopefully it'll be a refined experience, but I guess I'm just going to be reserved in judgment until I actually play it. Let's move on. Let's talk about, if you guys don't mind, let's talk about what we've all been playing lately. Let's start with you, Brian. What have you been playing lately?
Pretty much nothing, actually.
I was going to say the same thing.
This whole fall, summer has been pretty much devoid of much video game playing on my part, so
Yeah.
might pick up a little bit in time for the holidays if I get the Wii U system and try out some of the new games that are coming out at the end of the year, but so far it's been pretty barren.
Yeah, that's kind of sad. I'm kind of the same way, but it's only because I can't. I've just been so busy lately because I'm working on my own game, and it's time, really time consuming. I'm working like 60, 70 hours a week. I just don't have time for games anymore,
And what is this game that you're working on? Because I don't think most of our readers know about it.
Oh, sure. It's actually called The Dead Linger. I work for a company called Sandswept. We are a virtual studio. The Dead Linger is more or less, it's kind of like a mix between Minecraft and Left 4 Dead, but with more focus on survival and realism. So it's going to be massively multiplayer online, and it's a first-person zombie shooting game, but the entire world is PCG, so that's procedural content generation. That means anytime you ever play the game, it will be a different experience. And we are going to have a massive world, probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, world in a video game. We are going to be releasing our alpha build on the 31st, so I'm really excited to release that. And then not to forget that we were completely funded by Kickstarter, so I have basically been able to put food in my belly and shelter over my head for the last 6 months just because we made $150,000 on Kickstarter, and that has been able to fuel our game development all this time. I'm doing the rigging and animating for them, but that's all I've been doing. So, Devin, have you been playing anything lately?
Yeah, I've been playing several games that have been sent to me for GamesBeat, which is a satellite of VentureBeat. So I am basically doing game reviews for a new feature that they have that's called 3View. So they basically have the standard interview or review that you would get for players, and so basically why you as a player should be buying the game. There's the industry perspective, which is sort of like how good this release is for the company and the impact that it has on the industry. And the third one is the academic review, which is the one that I'm doing. And so I'm basically playing these games, looking at some sort of feature in there, whether it be about design, so how to build a better game based on looking at and observing this, or what the game has to say about the world at large, what you can learn about yourself or the world as a result of playing this. And so I've done 2 reviews so far. One is Bad Piggies, the other is Resident Evil 6, and the next one that I got to do is Dishonored, so I've been playing those. And aside from that, not a whole lot, though. This week, The Unfinished Swan is coming out on PSN.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so-
Is that black and white game?
Yeah, where it's basically
Oh,
a
kinda
first-person
interesting.
painter. Yeah, so you are exploring this world that's completely white, and you're flinging paint around to paint the textures, and so you can actually see what world it is you're in. And it looks pretty cool. I've got a PS Plus coupon that I'm going to use. And so that way I can get this a little bit early.
Yeah. Cool. I did want to mention, I actually have been playing Final Fantasy Feet Rhythm. I don't know if you guys play that or not, if you guys like rhythm games at all. Mostly it was my girlfriend who got it. She loves the game so much. But I kind of play it every now and then. And it's okay. I mean, it's a kind of your basic little rhythm game. You just tap with the rhythm of the music. But if you like Final Fantasy music, then it's a pretty great game. And they have some very light RPG elements there, too. You guys have 3DSs, right? I know Tevin does.
Yeah, I've got one. I downloaded the demo, but I haven't played any of those.
Yeah. Michael says he's been playing Xenoblade Chronicles, and I did want to mention I played a little bit of that game, and that game is badass. It's probably one of the best RPGs I've played in a very long time. He says it's a true classic. I agree. It is probably one of the best, if not the best, game that has been made for the Wii. It is a fantastic game. I was kind of reserved about it, just because I always have reservations when it comes to JRPGs. But I was truly impressed by it. Have you guys played that?
I played the opening, so for about an hour. I actually don't have a Wii with me right now, and I only moved some of my games. I'm waiting for the Wii U to come out, because after I play through the Wii U games, I can play through some of my Wii games again.
Yeah. Cool. Alright, so let's take a break, and we'll be right back. Alright, back from the break. Thanks for waiting. So let's move on to Metroid Prime 2 discussion. Just a brief kind of history on the game itself. The game was released in 2004 on the GameCube on November 15th, and then it was released later in Europe on what? Oh, yeah, it was released the same year on the 26th in Europe, and it wasn't released in Japan until May 26th of 2005. So they took quite a while, almost 7 months, to get that game translated and localized out in Japan. I wonder why that was. Not to forget that it was called Dark Echoes as well. It was Metroid Prime 2 Dark Echoes in Japan. And they, of course, had better box art than us, too.
Well, they also had the manga, the episode of Aether.
Yeah, the
comic manga.
manga, right, episode of Aether. Right. Well, we can touch on that a little bit, but maybe later we can talk about that. That was probably just like publicity for the game, right? Like advertising.
Yeah, though the interesting thing about that was they started it in July of 2005. And so this was like
so it was
2 months
after the
after the game came out, yeah.
Yeah.
And it only ran 6 issues, so they ended it in January of 2006, which we still don't have that one. I've been
Right.
looking for it. It's hard to find. Hard to find a lot of those, but we've only got about 4 issues left to locate between Metroid X, which extends Samus and Joey, which we're still working on, and the episode of Either. So,
Yeah. Cool. And it's not the greatest of manga, but hey, it's something, right?
it's actually not that bad.
Yeah. It's okay. But I mean, the art, the drawing is pretty good.
A lot better than Samus and Joey.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's really not too hard to top, though.
Have any of you been keeping up with the issues that we've released?
Yeah, I read them all the time. I read them when you release them. Absolutely.
We do have a lot of people who read them when they come up, and there's some good illustrations in some of them, but yeah, the story for...
Yeah, it doesn't quite follow the story, but we don't have it all, so we don't know. Yeah, it's cool. I guess for what they had, it's okay. You know, if you want to add some extra Galactic Federation troopers in there and stuff and make them characters that you care about, I guess.
But yeah, it seemed like they could have gone for, a couple years on this comic.
Yeah.
But they just decided to skip the whole middle part of the story and just go from meeting
Right.
Illuminoth to the last battle. And it's
Yeah,
like,
and then
okay.
she has the light suit, and you're like, what? Yeah, that's weird. Well, I'm sure we'll find it eventually. Just keep looking out for it. If anybody knows or has those issues, please contact us and send those in to us as soon as you can. We would translate those in a heartbeat. All right, so Metroid Prime 2 came out, and I don't think it did as well as the first one.
Well, it was released the same month as Halo 2, so...
Oh, you're right. Yeah, so that's probably one of the reasons. And of course, again, the market. It's really the market of the GameCube wasn't quite the same market as the Xbox or the PS2. So it's kind of like this catch-22 where they tried to make this quote-unquote hardcore game for the GameCube, but just your market, the people that own that system, it was not a GameCube, it was an Xbox or a PS2. So that's probably one of the factors. The game itself, though, is a little different. It's actually a lot different than the first Prime game. Mainly, there's that light world, dark world element. So, who was the guy?
Kensuke Tanabe.
Yeah, Kensuke Tanabe. So Tanabe-san, didn't he work on Link to the Past?
Yeah, he was one of the designers on it, I think. Unfortunately, I can't remember what exactly he's listed on in the credits, but he was one of the designers for Link to the Past. So he had a lot of experience with those dual worlds, as well as, and he talks about this in the interviews, but he says also about how difficult it is to create a game like that. And so when the Retro Studios team said, we want to do something like Link to the Past, it was like, okay, well, you can do it, but let me just warn you, it's going to be pretty hard, and here's why.
Yeah. And they did it anyway. Much to the chagrin of players. I just played it, and I kind of, after I was playing through the Trilogy version, and I do like some things about it, but I think the negatives outweigh the positives, in my opinion. One of the things that about that light world, dark world design, it's cool, it allows the designers to more or less reuse the same levels, or just take those level, the bare bones versions of those levels and kind of redesign them slightly, so there's not so much of a dramatic thing happening between levels, but they tried so hard, to make it look different, like you're definitely in a different world. But that kind of saves on development time. If you have a level and you want to make the game twice as big and you use just the same kind of rooms and then just add different models and different textures, there you go. I mean, that doesn't take nearly as much time to redesign than making something look completely different. So that probably helped speed up the development time. Also, I don't know if you guys really pay attention when you're playing these games, but they reuse a lot of stuff from the first Metroid, the first Prime game, when they make enemies specifically. So there's like Tangleweed from Metroid Prime. There's those Reaper Vines. They're like dark Reaper Vines from Metroid Prime. There's
Grinchler.
The Grinchler, exactly. It's like based on the Sheegoth from Metroid Prime, and they reused that AI, but maybe even the rigs and the animations, but they made the models slightly different, But they could still reuse those models and rigs, and
the difference is they can swim, which if you've ever seen a Grinchler swim, that's really creepy. Yeah. And they can jump, right. Really high.
Yeah, they jump out of the water really high. So yeah, they added to them. So maybe they just use those as a base, because they had that rig there already created. I guess that just speeds up on development time, because they must have started working on Prime 2 the very moment they finished Prime 1, or not, not too
I think
soon after.
They had like a 1 month break.
Yeah,
because
probably.
They did find the quote-unquote Metroid Prime 1.5, which was basically a discarded development document, and they built that over Thanksgiving break, and so they probably spent a couple months or so working on a concept for the sequel to Metroid Prime, and the 1.5 was not what they came up with. But it does shed a little bit of light on the development process at Retro Studios and how they come up with new ideas, which is always interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go back to the design of the game. I feel that the atmosphere in the game is unparalleled, and no pun intended, but the atmosphere that game has is probably the best out of all the Prime games. It's extremely creepy. It's downright scary at times. The sound design in the game is really scary and creepy and kind of eerie. The sound effects are scary too. Like those enemies, they sound like someone killing a pig sometimes, and it's just these shrill screeches that you hear, and it's kind of creepy, How about Brian? How do you feel about that?
I kind of had mixed feelings about the Dark World in a sense. I don't know. It seemed intimidating in terms of the health aspect, constantly having to watch your health meter and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know, and I think maybe it was partly the graphic design or something, but just having like the bright red and purple everywhere, it just didn't feel as dark and kind of scary as say like the Frigate Orphean and the beginning of Prime 1. I felt like that was like one of the most scary, moody, coming into the derelict space station and going through that. I don't know, the Dark World just didn't capture the same type of spookiness for me, I guess. It definitely felt oppressive. It felt oppressive, but it didn't seem like it was as scary as I think it could have been if maybe it had a little bit different art style or something, but I'm not too sure.
Okay.
It felt like a drag, I think, in terms of kind of like the speed going through it, constantly having to watch your health.
Yeah.
I know they were trying to go for that that kind of, oppressive, this is a really dangerous place. But at times I think it made the experience even slower.
Right.
Say the classic, which is, kind of jumping ahead. But the reason why I think some classic Metroid players might not have taken to this one as much as, possibly some of the other primes.
Sure, that's a really good point. And you had to keep shooting those light beacons as you played along, and you're always looking for that little light dot to shoot because that really hurt your health. But after you get the dark suit, that stuff is really reduced.
Yeah.
So there's just that oppressiveness feeling that you were talking about. Is not really there anymore after you get that dark suit. So you really only have that feeling for maybe about 30 minutes to an hour, depending how long it takes before you get the dark suit.
So you fight a Morbus or whatever.
Yeah, Morbus, right, exactly. Michael says he thought the atmosphere was good, but the Valhalla sequence in Corruption is the best of the trilogy. That's a really good point. I agree. I think the Valhalla sequence was absolutely fantastic, but let's save that discussion for the next podcast. How about you, Tim? What do you think?
I remember when I was younger and I first played the game, the absolute most scariest thing that they added from Prime 1 and Prime 2 is that the doors, when they close behind you, they have a sound effect, and for a good while I kept turning around me looking to see what that was. They would always close in time, so I'd never see it. It always scared me.
Oh, that's funny. Nothing else?
Well, for me, a couple things stand out. First, that whole intro sequence investigating the destroyed Federation base. That was really well done. And I think if you look at what they had, there's a lot of detail. So all sorts of, whether it's plants that are growing, the fog, the dead troopers hanging from the ceiling. There's all these little details that if you actually take a look at it, it makes the place feel pretty real. And I think that adds a bit to the story and the creepiness factor as well, because they do a lot of things with the environmental storytelling as well as the stuff with the logs. So it's like when you first jump into the hole there, you'll see that, they've got a bunch of dead splinters that have been sort of piled up.
Right.
And you can scan those, and that tells you a little bit more of the story, but it's sort of like you're investigating this thing after it happened and piecing the events together.
Yeah, that reminds me. When I went through Metroid, when I went through the Trilogy version just a few days ago, I couldn't believe how many of the dead corpses there were. I didn't remember that there were so many dead corpses lying around. And there's so many. There's a dead corpse in almost every other room.
Yeah, and it's not just the soldiers too. You'll find the Luminoth all over the place, and they'll just be lying around. There's that area before the giant portal, and you'll see a couple dead Luminoth there, and it says, "Oh well, it looks like they starved to death while on guard duty." Right. And it was oh wow, this is pretty bad. And the space pirate logs as well. They're like, this place sucks. This is horrible. Get us the hell out of here. And so I think that whole bit of atmosphere of the oppression of the Dark World, that it's not just affecting the Luminoth and the Marines, the good guys, but it's also even affecting the bad guys, the space pirates. You also kind of see that with the save and load sequence. I don't know how much attention you've paid to that, but when you see you load a file or you just save the game, it zooms in on Samus's face with the helmet, and she's got her eyes closed, and then she just sort of blinks them open, and it's like that's a real telling sequence there, because it's like, wow, I'm still stuck in this nightmare world here. When am I going to get out? So for me, that's one of the animations that stands out quite a bit. And again, it's something subtle. It's not a thing that most people will notice, but it's subconscious.
Interesting. Never thought about it like that. Yeah. Also, the fact that there's only one living Luminoth is pretty sad. They're like this. There's this, again, like the Chozo, a extinct race of creatures, or like a very a mysterious race of creatures. Speaking of creatures, what did you guys think about the Ing?
Could have used a better name, maybe.
What would you have suggested?
Good.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, I like it.
Why don't you like the name Ing, Tim?
Because it's a suffix.
Okay.
It's just ing.
Yeah.
It's the sound you put at the end of a jerry.
Okay.
I think it adds to the mystery of the creatures, because it's not even like a real word. It's just sort of like part of a word.
Yeah, maybe it was just a sound that the Luminoth called them. Maybe it was just
Okay. I think I understand now.
Yeah. Maybe. Well, I thought they were cool. They were kind of spidery-like. I'm actually arachnophobic, so that shit kind of scares me. But they were really well animated. They kind of turn into black puddles when they're kind of moving around. So I thought that was really awesome. They did some really nice graphical effects depicting that kind of creepiness. They were kind of like intangible, tangible at any time, and it also it was telling about the Phazon, since they were pretty much born from Phazon, right? Or they were mutated from Phazon. Or we never really got details on that, did we?
Well, the Phazon meteor hit the planet, and unlike Talon 4, it split the planet into 2 dimensions.
Right.
And one of them
so
is...
So were the Ing already in the dark dimension? We don't know.
I think to me...
Okay.
And this is also, coming from the manga as well, the idea that I got was that it was sort of like this alternate dimension that was created by the Phazon hitting. I mean, I guess you could argue that, there's a whole, dark evil dimension that's out there, and you don't want to open up a portal to that again. But from my perspective, it was the meteor hit, it sort of split the planet into 2, and the Luminoth that were caught in the dark side were corrupted to create the Ing. That was how I viewed it.
Wow. So the Ing.
Of course, I could be completely wrong. I mean,
is that what you're saying?
That's what I thought, is that the Ing were basically dark Luminoth, but
I never thought about it that way.
It's whatever the designers had in mind when they were doing it, and I don't think that the designers' idea, their story for the world is not necessarily more accurate than my interpretation or your interpretation or any of the readers have, because it's a game. It's like you
right.
You're the player. You're interpreting the world.
Yeah.
And so your interpretation, I would argue, has just as much weight as that of the designer, and whether or not you want to, shift it, or if there's new information that comes out that shifts it.
Okay. See, I had always thought the Emperor Ing made all the Ing, and they were just like spawn of him, and that they just and that when the when the Phazon meteor, the Leviathan, I guess, hit Aether, it kind of unlocked that dimension and also corrupted the game. So it made them even more like mutated and dark because of that corruption, and that the Emperor Ing was pretty much made out of Ing and Phazon, so that's why he was so big. But that's how I interpreted it. Does anyone else want to talk about this?
I think that's a huge, pit that you don't want to fall into because of the Metroid Prime 3 story about the Leviathan and the Leviathan Guardians. That just adds, we could spend the next hour just talking about that.
Yeah. But the meteor itself was a Leviathan. The one that hit Talon 4, that was Leviathan.
Mm-hmm.
The one that hit Aether, that was Leviathan.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. Just making sure.
But
all right.
One thing that I do want to point out is the graphics for Prime 2, much more detailed. It's because of the textures.
Nicer textures.
And I think that the textures, they found some way of getting a lot more out of the GameCube after they finished Prime 1. So I think the textures have something like 2, maybe 3 times as much detail as the ones in Metroid Prime. And so that, along with the colors, makes it, I think, look a lot better, a lot more exciting than the original one.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that. And also, I was going to say, I'm kind of neck deep in game development all the time now, so I was really paying attention specifically to the textures, and I noticed there are either little or absolutely none specular maps on anything that you see in the game, and I'm assuming just the GameCube couldn't really handle that. I think there's a specular map on the arm cannon, on Samus's arm cannon, and maybe her armor and her body. But as far as most of the environment itself, it's just a plain diffuse map. It's a normal texture map on a given object or a given creature.
Yeah, so what's the difference between the spec map and the texture map?
A specular map is the amount of light that is reflecting off of a given object. So if you have, water has a really high amount of specularity, or anything that's shiny has a really high amount of specularity. So that's what a specular map is. If you look at any of the given objects in the game, they're just flat. They don't reflect light at all. There's also no character shadows, and again, that's of course due to the GameCube limitation. But if there are character shadows, it's just kind of like a little circle underneath of the character. It's not a real-time depiction of the shadow itself. I do think that there's shadows maybe baked on to the light actually from the environment. So you'll see some environment shadows, but as far as real-time shadows on the characters themselves, not there at all. And then the complete lack of specularity, which, in today's consoles, on a next-gen console, that's one of the major important things. You'll see real-time specularity on all the surrounding objects that you interact with. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, it's really amazing how far we've come since then. And the GameCube, it wasn't really the best piece of hardware. It was one step below Xbox, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Xbox had a Pentium 3 processor. That's something that we kind of ignored. How powerful that was, and the types of games they were able to make for it. It's basically a Pentium 3.
Yeah. So you can Well, here's the even though they didn't have any specular maps, they made absolute 110% use of what they had, and they really went above and beyond what the GameCube could do. Especially with the they did have some animated texture maps, and they made a great use of transparency and alpha with their effects and such. One little cool thing, if you ever go and talk to Umos, if you kind of just sit there and stare at him, he raises up his hand, and you can, and a little ball of light appears from his hand. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he makes all those little moths kind of go to that. And that's all a particle effect, and I thought that was really cool. That's just some little fun thing they added in there, and it really helps the overall atmosphere of the game. So yeah, that was pretty cool. All right, let's move on. What do you guys think of beam ammo? I personally hate it. Cannot stand it. I want infinite ammo when I play Metroid. Go, Tim.
Well, I think that was a solution they had to come up with for the way in which they wanted you to use this beam ammo. Because it's much more, I'd say, combat orientated. You still use it to solve some puzzle challenges, but I think there was an emphasis on wanting you to use the light beam against the ink and the dark beam against light world creatures. And there are two ways you can balance a weapon. You can either control its firing rate, or you can control how many times you can fire it. And you'll get the wave beam and the ice beam, and they fired a lot slower than the dark beam and the light beam do. So I think if they didn't put the ammo system in, those probably would have been nerfed quite a bit as far as how fast you can shoot them, and it might not have been as satisfying to use them otherwise without the ammo system.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree. However, they made of course you can always upgrade. You can find ammo upgrades throughout the game, but there's doors. There's these doors that you have to always change your weapon to all the time, and you don't have. And maybe you're trying to conserve ammo, right? So on top of that, they also had to make crates throughout the entire game. And depending on if you're shooting it with a dark beam, it makes light ammo appear. And if you shoot it with light, it makes dark ammo appear. I thought that was always kind of weird. Why wouldn't it be the same, right?
Probably to encourage you to switch it up.
Yeah, I guess maybe. But you have to use those. You have to use that ammo to shoot open doors, right? So why didn't they just make? Why didn't they make it infinite? Or why didn't they make it so to open doors it wouldn't use up ammo?
Well, if it was infinite, let's just put it this way. Say you could shoot the dark beam or the light beam as often as you wanted. Why would you use any of the other beams? I mean, what would be the point of using, the plasma beam if you've got this other beam that does a lot more damage? So it's like in Super Metroid and Prime 3, of course, they just stack the beams, and so your beam becomes much more powerful. In the original Metroid Prime, you had the 4 different types of beams, and they would do different things. And so depending on, if you're fighting just normal enemies, of course you would use the plasma because that'll kill them faster. But with the beam troopers, you had to switch your weapon and use whatever their weakness was. So I think if you had infinite ammo, you would pretty much just use the light beam all the time in the dark world.
Sure.
And maybe the dark beam all or most of the time in the light world, though the dark beam has a pretty slow firing rate. It's basically like the ice beam from Prime 1.
Oh, it's way faster than the ice beam, though.
Yeah. It's a little faster than the ice beam, but it's used the same way. It'll freeze enemies and then you blast them with a missile. That's basically how I got through the whole game. You just use the dark beam and then you blast them with a missile, and it's so easy. Right.
That's how I took out the Metroids.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I do it. I don't know. I mean, do you guys agree? Like, it would have been nice to not have to use that ammo on doors, or do you feel like it doesn't matter because you always had extra ammo anyway?
I thought it was a reasonable challenge. I mean, it made you try to be a little bit more conserved with your ammo and feel like you're in a more of a survival situation than you normally would if you just go straight on into Norfair with, like infinite beam weapons or something. So, Mark Cassini, who is the game director, said that the design of it was to try and reinforce that light-dark duality into the game. So that was one of the reasons why they decided to go with the light and dark, and then the ammo part was to kind of just build off of that, I believe. I think it probably goes more towards their kind of the whole mentality that they were trying to go in the dark world of trying to make it a little bit more of a challenge.
Okay.
So I think that could have been one of the reasons why. And plus, it also means that you do have to switch up your weapons. So once you're in the middle of a boss fight or an even fight, and you've used up all of your light ammo or the Annihilator beam or whatever, you're forced to try and use that dark beam weapon, and it adds a little bit more variety, I think, in some of the battles sometimes.
Sure. That's a good it's a good time to segue into the challenge of the game, and I feel like it's probably one of the most challenging Prime games, if not the most challenging one. I was just playing it earlier, and it got pretty frustrating at times, specifically the Boost Guardian, which I wanted to kill myself after playing that MFing Boost Guardian. It took me 5 times. Now, I was playing the Trilogy version. Did you guys play the Trilogy version at all?
Yeah, I
played
played
both.
Yeah, and apparently it was like made easier. I don't know what they added or what they changed.
There's more energy and larger energy drops. So there's like more 50 energy drops and more 100 energy drops. And I think they may have changed the amount of damage that the Boost Guardian deals or something like that. I think they also changed it with the Spider Ball Guardian. Like, now he moves a little bit slower. But those were 2 that I think they specifically worked on.
Yeah, okay. Well, when I played Boost Guardian, it's like, if he hits you with that, when he goes into that puddle form, it takes like 50 energy. It takes like half a tank just by touching you. But the worst part about it is when you go into Morph Ball, the camera like goes up above the arena, and you have like this split second where you can't move. You're like frozen in place, and when you get that ability to move again, he could already be on top of you. So it's like this, it's like this gameplay. You're fighting with the game itself, and then you're fighting with the camera system. It's really weird. And then, of course, you have this cutscene that plays every time he gets out of the puddle form, which again, you're fighting with the cutscenes. You guys feel that way? You agree? Disagree? Don't all talk at once now.
Well, I played that boss a little while ago on the GameCube version. Yeah, I think that was the only death I ever got in that playthrough, though. I hate the Spider Guardian a lot more than the Boost Guardian, though.
You do know you can zoom in the camera on the Spider Guardian, right?
Yeah, you can toggle the camera.
Yeah.
A lot of people forget that.
Instant access. With the Wii, you can just flick the Wiimote up to jump, right? And
that would have made it a lot easier.
Yes, because in the GameCube version, you have to drop a bomb, right, to jump every time.
Every time you get to the bomb slot, there's a time limit before it just resets, and you got to do it again.
Yeah. Ugh, annoying. I didn't get to that part. I played all the way up to the middle of the Sanctuary Fortress before I stopped. But, I'll probably finish it eventually. And then, I'll have a better idea how that Spider Guardian goes. But yeah, I agree with you. Was it the Boost Guardian or the Spider Guardian that TJ stopped at? Do you remember, Devin? I think it was Spider Guardian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually
so
check. It
the
should
Spider
still be
Guardian
on
was
the
so
site.
frustrating that our site founder TJ, he stopped playing the game at that boss. He's like, I had enough of this game and I'm not going to play it anymore. And what's worse, I mean, okay, yeah, that's fine. Stop playing the game. He stopped contributing to the MDB at that point.
Spider Guardian destroyed the will of the
Yes!
MTV founder.
Yes! Can you believe that? I mean, it's pretty much true. Like, after that, after he, like, kind of fell out of Metroid Prime 2 because he was just like, I don't really like first-person shooters anymore. I mean, I'm sure he'll probably be mad at me that I'm saying all this. No, it doesn't matter.
Well,
He stopped contributing and he stopped updating the MDB after the Spider Guardian. Yes.
Well, I think there was a lot of other stuff that was going on
Sure.
with him at the time. That it wasn't just like Metroid Prime 2, because there was also, Metroid Zero Mission was coming out too. But I think it was just at one of those points in his life where he's got a lot more work to do in other areas, and not enough time to contribute to the site. But he did eventually beat the game.
Yeah, that's right. He went back and he beat it. But when? When did he do it? I don't know. Maybe later.
It's not
maybe
on
years
his
later.
review, but I know he completed it.
Okay.
I think he may have ended up using like a Game Shark or something to complete it. But I know he completed it. But yeah, it was the Spider Guardian,
Right.
and
Yeah, I actually just posted that link up. So if you guys wanted to read that link, the first paragraph there on March 1st, 2005, he says, that graphic I slapped on the front page reads TJ versus MP2. To put it bluntly, MP2 won. So that was kind of funny. Yeah, Michael just mentioned he knew some other people that rage quit at that boss. Yeah, people just rage quit right there because it's so frustrating. And that's there's actually a term for that, believe it or not. There's an industry term for that. It's called the shelf moment. And what a shelf moment means is someone's playing your game and they get to a point and they can't beat it and they get so frustrated they'll rage quit, and then they just put it back on the shelf and they'll never touch it ever again. And that's like one of the banes of the industry, is avoiding shelf moments. You never really want to frustrate your players that much so that they don't play your game anymore. It's tough. It's really tough.
Michael says F-Zero GX every level.
That game is so hard. Yes. F-Zero GX, so hard, so difficult, ridiculously hard. Especially those, trying to unlock those cups. Yeah. I agree. Alright, well, the other thing about it, other than the shitty difficulty of some of those bosses, is the level design. I don't know if you guys agree or disagree. I thought the level design was like really confusing and like overly like the path kind of snaked around too much. Like it doesn't matter what room you're in, it had some kind of snaky path, and it was kind of it's when you're playing a 2D Metroid game, it's just left to right, right to left, right, or up to down, because the room is big. But it's when you add that Z direction in there, the Z-axis, you can have just these spindly levels that really don't set well in your memory. You don't really sit in there and take the time to remember what everything looks like. You guys want to talk about that?
Was there a specific level that you had in mind, or just
I think
in
pretty
general?
much any of them.
Yeah, any
A lot of
them.
them are like that.
Torvus Bog, Aegon Waste, any of that. Yeah, even the dark side for that. They're like these snaky paths. You know?
I think
impression.
Oh,
go ahead.
no, Devin.
I was just going to say they've got these giant loops that you go on, and so if you're trying to get from like one edge of the map or one part of the map to another, they send you on this giant loop, and that's actually kind of weird because normally it's a lot easier to get from A to B, even in like a Metroid game. So some exceptions, like with Metroid Prime 1, there's sort of like this one room that's at the end of the sunken frigate, and the only way to get there is to go entirely through the sunken frigate to get to that point. With Metroid Prime 2, it seems to me that most of the rooms are like that. They're just these giant loops that they send you on. That's my impression from what I remember playing it. And so it ends up kind of like forcing you on these paths that are, maybe not as interesting, especially the second time you play through it. I mean, I didn't have too big of a problem with that the first time I played through the game when it first came out, but when I went back and replayed it years later on the Trilogy, I was like, wow, this is a little tedious.
Right. Yeah. So. Well, we'll get to Brian in just a second, but let's say you were recommending the game to someone, and they'd never played a Metroid Prime game before, and let's say Prime 2 was like the only one you had, so you were trying to get them to play it. Do you feel like having a strategy guide or like a game fact there would be more beneficial to a player?
A map.
Or a map.
Some of those great maps that we have on the website, those were created by Falcon Zero, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have all these great maps for Metroid Prime 2 on the site, and so if this is like your first time playing through it, or maybe even if you're just replaying it, use those maps that Falcon created because they're awesome.
Yeah, but even though they're those maps are really detailed and great, they don't tell you where to go, though. And I guess maybe that's part of the fun of why you want to play a Metroid game is to figure it out. Figure out where to go on your own. But I don't feel the level design was strong enough to actually do that, because in Prime 1, the level design was so fantastic that if you look, there are very subtle cues everywhere that kind of point in the direction of where you're supposed to go next. And that's one of the founding things of a good level designer, is to kind of help the hold the player's hand, but not do it directly. Just drop these subtle hints every now and then, and they did that with environment art and such. But with Prime 2, it doesn't seem to be there. Like I'll give you a prime example. The temple, the main temple in the game. There's like 3 paths, right? And every single path looks exactly the same. Like there's the path to the Aegon Waste, the path to the Torvus Bog, and the path to the Sanctuary Fortress. And they all look the same. And
I got so messed up on that.
Yes, and you're like, shit, this is the way I wanted to go. Right?
Turns into a guessing game for me. I'm like, I think this is the right one. Let me try it out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
without checking the map.
Yeah, and you're just sitting there, you're staring at the map, and you're rotating around 360 degrees, and you're like, is this the way? I don't know, Yeah, you totally know what I'm saying. All you need to do, yeah. But all that takes, though, is all you need is like a little texture map or something, or a piece of environment art that's different in some way, and that sets with your memory. And you just say, oh, well, this one there's like a little bog plant in here or something, and that's the way to Torvus Bog. That's all they need. And the map doesn't help you either. because the map doesn't say, this way to Torvis Bog, right? Because you have to go into the temple grounds first before you find the way to Torvis Bog or Aeon Waste or whatever. So you have to leave the temple, right?
Or get to the elevator and find out it's the wrong elevator.
Yes.
Walked all the way into the wrong elevator.
So what were you going to say? Were you going to say anything else about that, or?
Yeah, I was going to say also, just kind of the way the Dark World is set up, like, it didn't really seem like there was much difference between the Dark World. I mean, I haven't played it in a while, but there didn't really seem to be a big difference between the Dark World and, say, Torvis Bog, or versus, say, the Dark World and, any of the other Agon Waste or whatever.
Yeah.
So, like, having to be jumping back and forth between portals from the Light World to the Dark World, and having kind of like the same level design, but it being different and switch back on you, and then having to go back and forth between them, I think it can get a little extra disorienting because of that. Something that Prime 1 and Prime 3 didn't have.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are good points. Yeah, the Dark World Light World probably just doesn't help your situation at all. And, they kind of, I feel like they were just trying to cram so much in at all times, and they've forgotten to kind of step back and look at the way that their level design was being made. And maybe it was too late. Maybe it was too late to make those changes, those big changes. I feel like they could have made the temple grounds a little nicer looking. They tried to make it so it was kind of barren, I guess, to promote the idea like they lost all their energy and all their plant life and everything was dying. But maybe as you got closer to the temple itself, maybe they could have added some more vegetation or made it a little livelier looking or something, you know what I mean?
It did feel like kind of lifeless on, as far as that barren, like what you're saying.
I think that's just a really, that did not resonate very well with people, is that Prime 1 you start off in this dark, claustrophobic metal environment, and then you go to this lush green environment, and then you go to a desert environment, and then you go to, a hot, closed environment, then an open, cool environment, whereas in Echoes you go from desert area to a desert area to a slightly darker desert area.
Yes. Yeah, no, this is a wet desert area, right? And this is I totally agree. Totally agree. Or this is a dark, wet desert area. Yeah. The Torvis Bog, though, the Torvis Bog is probably one of the coolest places in the game.
The murky water did help make it
Yeah, that's
more spooky on there.
Right.
When you first enter and you're like, I'm not too sure if there's a creature in here or not.
Yes. Yeah, and then you see the log is like 2 feet in front of your face. Right. I did like the Sanctuary Fortress, though. I thought that was probably the coolest area of the game. And the music is pretty cool, too. Lots of reused textures in that area, but, lots of sameness. But it was still a cool area. But it definitely sets itself apart from all the other areas in the game. That was my favorite part. Hey, let's move on to favorites. You want to do that? Whee! All right, guys. Let's talk about favorite stuff. So, I said Sanctuary Fortress I liked a lot. Let's go to Devin. What did you like?
My favorite level, probably the Sanctuary Fortress. I think it's because the level design, or not the level design, but the concept for it, very different than anything else we've seen in a Metroid game. I know some comparisons have been made to like Tron or something like that, but it's this place that's sort of like this this mesh between sort of like a high technology city and sort of like computers, and so it's really weird because the levels are basically have a lot of these automatons in them, but it's also completely devoid of people. It's like you would sort of like feel that, there's supposed to be some Luminoth walking around in here, but it's, they're all gone, and it's just these robots that have gone haywire. And so, to me, that's sort of one of the aspects of the Sanctuary Fortress that makes it so interesting. Is that also the giant gyro in the center is kind of cool.
Yeah, I was going to mention that gyro actually. I don't know if you remember a few weeks ago I asked you if you had ever seen Event Horizon, and you said no.
No, I've seen it. It's
do you?
more than.
Do you remember what was in the center of the ship? Remember the black hole thing? It was the dynamo. It's basically exactly like that. Like, exactly. It's those, those kind of loops with the sphere in the middle that are all spinning in different directions. So I don't know if the retro artists were just inspired by that or not or something, but it is so similar to that shape, that gyro shape. It's called a gyro, it looks like a gyroscope. But I just thought it was kind of interesting how, Event Horizon, it's like this sci-fi movie in the 90s. Has anyone else seen it? No? Oh.
I'm gonna have to see it again. It's been more than 10 years. More than 10 years.
So good. Alright, well, I'm going off on a tangent. Well, anyway.
Really freaky.
Yeah, really, really freaky sci-fi movie. Let's go on to Tim. What did you like about Metroid Prime 2?
I'm trying to think, and I can't think of anything aside from the Sanctuary Fortress.
The
I was
marine
disappointed
compound.
when you had to shut down and tear apart that dynamo. You'd stop each ring and then you blew up the center.
Yes.
The part of me died when I had to do that.
Aww.
I do like the save rooms in the Sanctuary Fortress. I mean, in the Prime Trilogy in general, they do put a lot of thought into something as small as the save rooms, whereas in the 2D games and Other M, they're just sort of a stamped stock example of a room.
Yep, totally.
Quadraxis.
Is there anything else that you liked about it, other than that? No?
Quadraxis.
You didn't like the bosses or anything?
I can't remember everything in the game right now.
You guys were supposed to do research.
I played the game, wasn't that enough?
Yeah, I guess.
I played it. I just didn't like anything that was in there. Well, here's Michael. Michael says that he likes the opening where you find the possessed troopers. It was really creepy and added tension. Yes, I also agree. I really enjoyed the intro sequence. I've already talked about it, but
it's very similar to Metroid 2, though. The storyline, right?
Yeah, a little. I mean, it's like we've sent
troopers that are getting killed, and in Metroid 2, well, we never saw it, but it was just they were killed by Metroids.
Yeah. And they basically say, we send them the professionals to get the job done. They didn't get the job done, so now we need to hire somebody who's even more professional.
Yes. Yeah, I did like those zombie troopers. I thought that was pretty cool.
But it's also kind of sad because it's like, these are the best that the Federation has to offer, and I mean the space pirates lasted longer than they did. And they barely even scratched the surface of the of Ether before they got annihilated. So it's like that's pretty sad.
Speaking of space pirates, they kind of seem to go back to the old design. You guys notice that? Like, they're definitely not like the Prime 1 design kind of pirates. They went back to the crab hands, the lobster space pirates. Do you guys notice that? Did you guys like that? Dislike that?
I thought they were pretty cool. Like when they showed the first preview back at E3, what was it, 2003?
3, yeah.
3, when they showed the red space pirate coming and grabbing Samus and tossing her.
Yes.
Thought it was a cool design.
Yeah, definitely. And those the commando pirates are pretty cool too, even though they're annoying. I just
At
think
least they have the decency to go away after a while.
yes, like if you can't kill them quick enough, they just leave. They're like, you suck. Goodbye. That's what happens to me so often. Or I just ignore them. I'm just like, oh, I'm just gonna go into this door. I don't care about you guys. But then sometimes the door is locked. So it kind of sucks. You have to kill them. Well, how about Brian? What do you think?
Well, actually, Metroid Prime 2 was probably my least favorite out of the trilogy, but it was still a really good game. I think the thing that I liked the best out of Prime 2, out of all of the trilogy, was the emphasis on the morph ball and the puzzles and how you had to use it for like the bosses. I think probably it's my favorite Metroid game use of the morph ball, the spider ball and how they use that. So sorry, TJ, with the spider garden. That was a cool boss.
He's probably taking his fist at you, right?
But yeah, I really liked how they implemented the morph ball puzzles in Prime 2. It wasn't just kind of, go and find a small little hidden corridor, roll through it, come out of morph ball. It was, actually being used for puzzles, and you actually fight the bosses and stuff like that.
Right.
So I thought that was a pretty cool addition for it. Favorite levels would probably be the Sanctuary Fortress, but I really did the Torvus Bog as well. The Alpha Bog fight is probably one of my most favorite boss fights, along with Quadraxis. So I don't know, Quadraxis is definitely my favorite boss of the game, but the Blog was pretty cool.
And don't forget there was that awesome remix of Red Star in there.
Right, right.
Torvus Bog, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that was a great addition.
Yeah, really appreciated that part. Yeah, for sure. That's cool.
Same as the escape theme.
Oh yes, the escape theme was in there too. Yeah. I wanted to mention. It's funny. Like no one. I guess this just didn't leave a lasting impact, but absolutely no one has mentioned Dark Samus yet. Because like Dark Samus is in it. Holy shit, guys! Dark Samus, right?
I thought that was a given. Yes, that goes without saying.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, there was Dark Samus in it, and I guess what that tells me is they didn't use Dark Samus enough, right? Because she didn't really leave a lasting impression. She was just kind of there. You fought her. She went away. You quote unquote kill her. Then she comes back and she like forms out of little phazon molecules floating around in the air, right?
Outer space.
Outer
Even
space.
worse.
Well, that was at the end, but like when you play it later in the game, you go through this tunnel and you see all these phazon molecules in the air. You remember that part?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two parts
That was good.
Yeah, 2 parts. Right. Right. Hey, that was memorable. That was memorable, Tim. You remembered that?
Yeah. She blew up that bridge I was about to use.
Yeah. So that was cool. Unfortunately, I do think that they didn't use her enough. Like, they didn't really. She was there, but she didn't seem like she had any significance.
What was her agenda?
Yeah, like I guess her agenda was just to get Phazon, but you didn't really see her interact that much. You didn't get to interact as much as you saw in 3. And now that I think about it, yeah, because in 3 she's like there all the time, and then she kills all the hunters, and she's always there. And in this one, what was it? You see her, she's like kind of sucking Phazon from a wall,
Yeah.
right? And then you don't see her for a while after that, so you don't really understand why she's there other than just like collecting Phazon.
Yeah, it's the motive. What is the motive for Dark Samus? And
Yeah.
I think Michael's got a comment here where he says that he was never a fan of Dark Samus but he thought that she was pretty boring after SAX did it a few years earlier. And I think, this is an interesting comparison to look at SAX from Fusion, Dark Samus in Prime 2, Dark Samus in Prime 3. In Fusion, SAX has a motive, and that's to blow up Samus. In Prime 3, Dark Samus has a motive, which is to, control the spread of the Phazon and of the corruption. So we see Dark Samus, coming out of the bodies of the hunters after you defeat them. We see her when she arrives at the on Norian for the first time, as sort of like directing it. And then we have the log entries that say, well, Dark Samus is leading all the space pirates to glory. Whereas in Prime 2, it's just sort of, well, Dark Samus is here. She's fighting the pirates. Her goal seems to be to steal Phazon. Not real sure why.
Yeah. She's just hungry.
Yeah, it's not like you would see with a traditional doppelganger.
She's a big Phazon burger.
Yeah, but it's like the whole idea behind, a dark form, a mirror form of somebody is like the doppelganger.
Yeah.
It's sort of like the shadow side of somebody.
Oh, Zing the Tim right there.
What was that?
He said, or an echo.
Yeah. So it's sort of like the goal of Dark Samus, you would think, as being the doppelganger, that, maybe this might reflect some dark aspect of Samus, or maybe the goal of the doppelganger would be to get revenge on Samus for, killing Metroid Prime in the original game.
Right.
But...
Right. Yeah, because that's what I would assume. I would assume that she would have a much greater role than what she did.
Yeah, so...
I don't think they even had the full story set up. I mean, they never planned it to be a trilogy from the beginning also, so when they had that, ending cutscene at the end, showing the hand coming out, it's not like they already had an idea of what they wanted to try and do with it. It was kind of like, okay, we showed it, so we have to put Dark Samus in Prime 2, but I don't think they really kind of got the whole story nailed down until they finally started developing Prime 3.
Yeah.
So it seemed like she was just kind of there just to connect with Prime 1, but not that they planned on building up to some sort of,
right,
doppelganger character.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. However, it's, that's a good point, especially about Prime 3, because who's the last boss again? Dark Samus is the last boss of the game.
No, it's the Aurora unit.
Aurora unit.
No, well, I'm sorry, I was talking...
You fight Dark Samus, then you fight the Aurora unit.
Right, but... Yeah, you know what I mean. But in Prime 2, she's the last boss, but there's no build-up. There's no build-up to that point. You need to get the hell out of there. You killed Emperor Aang, but there's Dark Samus, and you're like, shit.
And Dark Samus is a skeleton, too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, because she's, dying, right? Yeah, so, but, in Prime 3, there was that build-up. That build-up was there because you knew that your Aurora unit was stolen, and you didn't know why, you didn't understand, really, and later on you find out those details. But with this, it was just like, hey, I'm here, what's up? I'm going to try to kill you. And I think that was the one where you had to, suck in the Phazon and shoot it back, right?
Yeah.
Another annoying battle. I agree with Quadraxis. Quadraxis was awesome. Boost Guardian was not awesome. Spider Guardian was not awesome. Chica was not awesome. I just fought Chica, actually, just, a few hours ago. It was just annoying.
I thought Chica was pretty cool. Of course, that was a while back that I played it.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing.
Why was Chica annoying?
Well, yeah. The reason Chica was annoying is because you can fall off the edge at any time. It shoots these stupid little dark spit things at you that are almost impossible to dodge completely. You can go left and right, but you can't dodge them all the way. And then you have to grapple. You have to grapple while it's stunned, and you don't always have that much time. And then you got to turn around and do the missile. What's it called? The missile launcher. Yeah, the seeker missile. Right. So that leads me to this point. The seeker missile is badass. I love the seeker missile. Seeker missile and Annihilator Beam are great weapons, but I feel like the seeker missile was not used enough. You guys agree?
Yep.
It's an awesome weapon, but you hardly ever have an incentive to use it other than as a key, right? You use it against Chica, and do you use it against Quadraxis? I don't remember.
He does have 3 weak points that you can attack simultaneously if you wanted to, I guess.
Ah, I see. Yeah, but I feel it was a really awesome weapon to have, but it was underutilized. Which is, it's not just another notch in the game that they could have really gone with, but they didn't.
I think they built on it in Prime 3, though.
They did. And then they had that phase-on beam that you shot, which was pretty awesome.
And, well, that also brings me to the Echo Visor.
Yes.
Which, again, it's kind of cool, but you only used it in 3 or 4 places.
Right.
And this brings me to one of the critiques of items in games like Metroid and Zelda. It's like if you're giving the player an ability, well, in these games, your item is the ability. But if you're giving the player an item or an ability, you should probably be letting the player use that pretty frequently. So the more often you use it, the more useful the item is. The more fun it is to use this item, the better it's going to be. And so I think the more combinations of uses you can get out of it. I've talked about this before, but basically the way I see it in a Metroid game, each item has one of 3 uses. It can be used as a weapon, it can be used to change the way in which your character moves, the way in which Samus moves, or it can be used as barrier removal, so being able to access new areas. So if you look at the Morph Ball, it changes the way that Samus moves. So now she can move through the narrow passages, which is both movement function and barrier removal, because now you can get through that narrow passage that you couldn't before. The other thing, if you get the bomb upgrade, now you can use that as a weapon. And so I think if you look at your items, and the items that people seem to like the most, I think they tend to fit in as many of those categories as possible, so that they're basically used very frequently. And so, with the Echo Visor, there's not really a whole lot of motive to use it outside of a few enemies and a couple puzzles, and the last boss, Dark Samus, you got to use it on her as well. But beyond that, not really much incentive to use the Echo Visor. Doesn't really give you too much of an advantage.
The Dark Visor, though, that was more used than the Echo Visor, because you could have these enemies that you would, when you were in the Dark World, if you turn on the Dark Visor, you could find them. Otherwise, they would kind of phase out of existence, right? So it was kind of Prime 2's version of the Thermal Visor, or whatever it was called. And you could use that both as a movement thing, because it would allow you to find invisible platforms, and then you could use it as a combat thing. So you're dead on. Totally agree. Absolutely. It's a really great point. Maybe they, I don't know where I'm going with this.
Well, the things that I like too is the way that they change the interface. So you bring up the Dark Visor, which is a lot like the Thermal Visor. Only it's a lot easier to see things. And the other thing that they did is when you turn on the scan visor, it actually highlights the entire thing that you can scan in like blue,
Yes.
which makes it a lot easier to use, because if you remember in Prime 1, it was just these little squares.
Right.
Which is a lot harder to see.
Definitely a welcome addition. Yeah.
So they definitely changed a lot of things with the interface for the better. So it's a lot easier to play for that reason.
So how did you guys feel about the light suit?
Not as good as the dark suit.
Really? Why is that? Why do you say that?
Shoulders weren't nearly as powerful looking.
But it's more streamlined, sexier.
The dark suit looks like she's got hamster wheels on.
What's not to love about that?
Have I told you this the theory about why the dark suit looks like that?
The fish. We all know about.
No, that was that was in Prime 1. The various suit shoulders was because of the goldfish that's in there. So
Okay.
the fish keeps her cool in Magmore. What the dark suit does is it has these giant gerbil wheels in there, and so the gerbils will be, or the hamsters will be running on the wheel, and it's squeaky, so the squeakiness of the wheel keeps back the dark vibes of the dark world, and so that keeps her safe. Unfortunately, squeaky wheel, very annoying, so she takes 1 point of damage very slowly over time for that reason. And
But then she heals herself whenever she's in a light beacon. How do you explain that one?
it counteracts the effects of the gerbil.
Oh.
It operates at that same frequency, so they cancel each other out.
Yeah, you're right. I think the sound does change a little bit. That's a good point. Well, I like the light suit, even though, again, underutilized. Screw attack, underutilized.
Artwork in the manga for the light suit is good.
What was that?
In the manga, the light suit in there looks really awesome.
Yes. What were you saying, Tim?
Good for killing residents is the screw attack.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. However, everything else, not so good. It also, there was like bottomless pits, just kind of annoying. But the screw attack was not nearly as good as it is in the other round. Agree? Disagree?
Yes.
Okay.
There's one room where you have to do that screw attack up the walls, and as soon as I got up to the very top, I had screw attack too high, and I hit the top of the ceiling and fell all the way back down. Went back up the tunnel again, and I guess I hit the sweet spot between where the screw attack surface ends and the lip of the thing that you're getting on top of begins, so I bounced off of that and fell down again.
Oh man, that sucks. That sounds frustrating. Yes.
Screw attack another though. That's how 3D screw attack should be.
Yes, absolutely. I agree totally. Bryden, how do you feel? What's up?
On the screw attack?
No, dark suit versus light suit.
Oh. Yeah, I really like the light suit design. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea that, I can just roam around now without having to worry about taking damage, so it made it a lot more fun to run through the levels because with all the backtracking by the time you get to the end of the game, so that was a nice welcome addition.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, here's when I was playing just now, these past few days to prepare for this podcast, I thought about something that, of course, it's too late to change anything about it now, but here's a suggestion. I'm just going to make a suggestion, and then we can go around and see if you guys have any others. My main suggestion about the game, if I could, let's say we were testers, right, and we were making suggestions. After you get the energy from the temple, from like the Darkening Temple, after you beat the boss, have a portal that would allow you to warp back to the main temple. Like that you could possibly unlock in some form or fashion that would allow you to just warp back there. Because it was so annoying just having to go back and forth so many times. You have to do it, essentially you have to do it 6 times, right? Because there's 3 temples. Or I guess 8 times, because there's the Sky Temple at the end, right? But every time you get that energy, you have to go back to the Light World version, and you have to find the portal, go back, find the temple, go back, and then transfer the energy. So that's what I would have loved. Just some way to easily warp back there instantaneously, so you wouldn't have to keep traversing that, because that's the next thing you have to do, right? You have to do that regardless. And I feel, maybe I'm just being overly whiny in that aspect, but I would have liked to have something like that. And you could do that with the light suit, but I feel like if there was just maybe a portal that would be a back door or some way just to allow you to get back to those places really quickly.
Well, that would make it really easy for the Ing to steal it back.
Not if it was locked.
Well, let's... The thing that I remember from playing that was always being sort of like unnerved. It's like, okay, I have this energy. The Ing know that I have the energy, and yet they're not appearing more frequently or chasing me or trying to block me from getting back to the light world.
Yes.
They've been like time splitters.
Sorry, I'm not familiar with time splitters.
In the first game, basically every level is, you go through the level, find the MacGuffin item, and then return it to usually the beginning of the level. And as soon as you grabbed it, these time splitters would just teleport out of every corner and just start lobbing little energy balls at you, and you had to make a mad dash.
Yeah, that's cool. So that kind of gives you more of an incentive to work faster.
Yeah, or even just have the Ing ambush you in certain places too. So it's like you suspect something's happening, but it's not.
Because you're like just leisurely walking back.
Yeah, I mean it could be ambushes. It could be a giant Ing that's kind of invincible. All you can do is just blast it so it disappears into fragments, and then maybe that gives you an extra minute before it will reform and start chasing you again.
Yeah, interesting. Well, yeah, because that would basically it would make you feel like what you're doing is more important instead of just getting that and going back. That's cool. That's a cool idea. How about Ryan? What would you like to suggest if you could?
Maybe not have so much of a cookie cutter on the dark world, light world rooms. Kind of want a little more variety.
Yeah.
I think it might have made the exploration through the dark world feel a little bit more. I mean, it did feel different because it was much harder to see in the dark world, but you knew it was just kind of the exact same level you were just previously in, so it didn't have that same element of surprise I think it might have if it was like, this is a whole new level, different layout, you're going to have to explore it completely differently from the room you just were in before you went through the warp portal.
Yeah, totally. That's something they do so well in Link to the Past. But of course, I guess it's easier because it's 2D and top-down, and the map is a lot more simpler.
Right.
So they can just change up the map as much as they want. But yeah, I agree. There really wasn't a lot of or enough variety from one place to the other, because that would probably make it even more confusing. Like the game wasn't confusing enough. How about Tim? What would you suggest?
Sort of something similar to that. One thing that I always thought was kind of odd is that all the dark world areas are just basically dark, temple grounds, dark, Torvus Bog, except for the Sanctuary Fortress. They call it the Ing Hive, and yet it doesn't look like a hive or any different from the Sanctuary Fortress. I thought there was kind of a missed opportunity there. I also, like I said earlier about the difference between the varying environments in Prime to just more and more deserts. I think they could have used throwing you through a couple more diverse areas more quickly in the game, just to kind of show you that there's a lot more to it. Give you a better incentive to explore it.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree. I feel like those suggestions are really good. We can't forget about Michael, though. He says he would suggest making Dark Samus a greater force in the game if she came in more often, and would increase the tension and make it a little spicier. And he thinks the horror is a big part of Metroid, and Dark Samus could have cranked up the dial on it. Yes, totally agree. In comparing, of course, to the SAX, that's probably one of the scariest parts of Fusion. I remember my heart racing when I was at those points, because if you jump down there, she would basically kill you. So it was really scary to see that. So yeah, maybe they could have had had a few rooms where Dark Samus was in, that you would have encountered her, and you would either have had to do a fight or a flight, or maybe they would have to force you to run away from her, that she would just sit there and kill you. Maybe they could have had like pools of Phazon, maybe like little patches of Phazon where Dark Samus would be, and that she would use that Phazon energy against you, and if you didn't run away quick enough, she would kill you. That would have been kind of cool, I think. So, okay. Let's move on. One last thing before we end. Let's talk about the big main thing that they added to Prime 2, and that was the multiplayer. Or do you not want to talk about it because it was kind of lackluster?
I actually never played it.
What?
I never played the multiplayer.
Oh. Yeah, it wasn't that great.
So I didn't miss anything.
No, you didn't. What were we going to say, Tim?
I was going to say we could save this subject for on the 100th podcast, and then talk about Metroid and multiplayer all in one go there.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's fine. That's cool. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, this might be a better idea.
All we're going to probably do is just slam it and say how shitty it was. You guys play the Trilogy version. Tim, you said you only played the Trilogy version, right?
No, I've played both.
Oh, you have played both. Is there anyone that has only played the Trilogy version? Oh, it was Michael. Okay. So, if you do only play the Trilogy version, in my opinion, I think that's probably the better version to play. I think the way you just go about fighting things, Echoes is way more battle-oriented than the first Prime game was. You're kind of forced to attack enemies all the time, quite a bit more often than you do in the first Prime, where you can just kind of ignore the enemies if you want, which is way more like Super Metroid. You're only forced to attack enemies if you're going through either the room is infested with them and you just have to get them out of your way, or you're at a boss. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing for Metroid, but I feel like using the Wii controls makes it for a more fun experience, and you're not just sitting there pounding on the L button to lock on to the enemies all the time. Instead, you're pounding the Z. But that's how I feel. Anybody else want to talk about that?
I haven't compared the differences, but just having that widescreen visor makes it a lot easier to navigate. Even more. I think it might be even more helpful than the Wii controls, being able to see a lot easier.
Yes.
Instead of the square format visor stretched
right
across the screen.
Right, that's a great point. And let's not forget that when they released those games, Prime 1 and Prime 2, they released them separately in Japan with the the added play control, and then eventually they brought out the Trilogy. So I agree. Maybe that playing with widescreen on all the games is really the best way that you can play it, and that playing the GameCube version with all its extra challenge, I guess, it's not really as necessary. So it's harder, it's more difficult to play through the game, and it's not as it's maybe not as fun as someone that would be playing it for the same time in this day. Whereas maybe if it was someone back in 2004 or 2005, they might be okay with it because the GameCube was the only technology at the time. Devin, how do you feel?
About which version is better?
Trilogy improvements or any changes that the Trilogy did over the GameCube version?
Yeah, I actually prefer the Wii controls over the GameCube, and actually here's why. I can tell what one of the big differences is with the Wii remote. You can aim a little bit more easily, and your hands aren't both strapped to a single controller, so you've got a lot more movement. Whereas with the GameCube, your two hands are stuck in one place, and so you feel, or at least I feel, a little bit more cramped when I'm playing on the GameCube. One of the advantages that you have with the GameCube controls, though, is it's a lot easier to lock onto a target, because you just hit, let's see, it's the L button?
Yes.
Yeah, so you just tap L to lock onto targets. And what I would always do is I would just tap L really quickly to lock onto multiple targets, or to change targets really frequently, and just keep on pressing the fire button. And so I would rapidly deal damage to a lot of enemies, and take them out that way. You can't really do that on the Wii.
Right. Right. Because you have to aim more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think playing this on the Trilogy has definitely made the game more fun, even though, despite of its flaws, I feel like I am having a way better experience. I still haven't yet to beat it, though, but I will eventually. I do remember going through the GameCube version on hard mode, and that was probably one of the most frustrating experiences of my entire life. And I have made a vow to myself to never do that ever again as long as I live. That is going through hard mode on the GameCube version, but I don't know if I'll go through hard mode on this version. It's not worth it to me. Has anyone else gone through hard mode?
Yeah, before.
Yeah, it's just not fun. Especially the Emperor battle at the end. I played through Emperor on hard, and I had like 100% of items, and it was still just grueling grind.
Well, don't they increase the difficulty of these bosses once you get 100% anyway?
I don't think it works that way, does it?
I remember playing, first noticing this with Prime 1. I was like, I don't remember the Metroid Prime being so difficult with the last boss than with 100% versus fewer items. I don't know if they changed something, or that's just that I just happened to be playing really poorly at that time. But
maybe, yeah, I don't know. That would be really cheap though, if like they increase difficulty just because you have 100%.
Didn't they do that with Metal Ridley and?
I don't know,
Zero
man.
Mission?
I mean, I feel like that having 100% is more. It should be more empowering. You know, like you feel like a badass because you can just go around and kick the shit out of everything because you have, 255 missiles or whatever. You don't even care. Right? I mean, that's like one of the greatest parts about Metroid is that when you have 100% of all your items, you just kill the shit out of everything. You guys agree?
Yeah, totally. I wonder if was it the hyper mode version, what the difference is between that for the trilogy versus the hard mode in the GameCube version. How different that is.
Yeah. And are you talking about Prime 3?
No, Prime 2.
Does Prime 2 have a hyper mode?
Doesn't it have, or not hyper mode?
I thought hyper mode was 3.
Did it have 3 settings?
I don't know. Does it? I can't remember.
Maybe on the
I thought hyper mode was just 3. Prime 3.
yeah, they had the 3 settings. There was the normal, or the easy, veteran, and hyper.
Well, the Prime Trilogy has 3 difficulty settings, and the GameCube has 2.
Okay, so that means Prime 2 only had hard mode and normal mode. Right?
Yeah, on the GameCube.
Yeah, the GameCube version. So, I mean, hyper mode, I don't know. I don't know how much harder hyper mode would be. I don't want to attempt it or say that much. It's just not fun. Kind of like, did you guys try to go through hard mode on Other M?
No.
Yeah, I finished it.
Don't do it. Okay, so let's see. Michael has a statement here. Says he thinks Echo was a good game, but was taken out of the too early. It was they finished it. They said it was finished too quickly. He speculates that NOA was concerned about Halo 2 coming out, so they had retro rushed the game out for holiday sales. And if it was developed for 6 more months, it might have been a better experience. And he thinks that even despite that, it has a feeling of being rushed. It's still a good game and worth playing for anyone who enjoys Metroid or adventure games. And yes, I agree. It's kind of unfortunate, kind of ironic that the dark horse of the game is Metroid Prime 2 of the trilogy. But it's still a pretty good game. It's kind of like it's weird because I feel like Prime 2 could possibly be seen as the first. Well, when did Hunters come out? I don't know if you guys know where I'm going with this. Okay, Hunters came out in 2006, so it came out after Prime 2. Prime 2 may have been the first unsuccessful Metroid game. You know? And as saying unsuccessful, I mean not as successful as some of the other ones. And it's just kind of too bad. I feel like, when you look back on it, there's a lot of effort put in, a lot of different things. I know we kind of ragged on the level design, but it's really organic looking. It is kind of pretty if you just kind of stop and look at all the details that all the designers try to put in the game. But when you make it so confusing, all that stuff just kind of gets ignored. It just kind of gets put by the wayside. And the weaponry is cool, the aim is cool, the attacks and effects are cool. But overall, it just on a complete package, it's not quite as good as 3, and it's not quite as good as 1. That's how I feel.
On the sales, I just double-checked on VG charts, and they sold about half as many as Metroid Prime. So in North America, there was 1.96 million units of Metroid Prime sold. Echoes sold 800,000. So big difference.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's kind of disappointing and sad. Yeah, it's too bad, man.
Which is about the same number of people who bought Echoes bought Corruption.
Yes. Well, that probably boils back to advertising again, right? The advertising for Prime 2 was abysmal, was it? Wasn't there like one crappy ass commercial for it?
Well, there was the whole I Love Bees advertising campaign that they tried.
You guys remember that? I Love Bees?
No.
Oh. There was a Halo campaign called I Love Bees, right?
Yeah, I Love Bees.
ilovebees.com? Right, so...
It was an alternate reality game.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's still there.
Yeah.
It's funny. So, Nintendo combated that with their own, and what they did is they started buying all these domains, and we were, like, recording all of them on the MDB forum. It was, like, the old forum. And they bought I Love Trees, and I Love C's, and I Love D's, and I Love Keys, and just
I Love Cheese.
Yeah,
I love trapeze. Anything that rhymed.
Rhymed with bees. I Love Bees. They bought it. It was so funny. And don't we have like a picture of that still on the site? I think there's a desktop. When you would go there, it would show a picture of Samus, and it said, "Don't send a man to do a woman's job."
Yeah. No, there was more to it than that. So they did buy the sites. But they also did a few other weird things. There was the Athena Astronautics, which that site's no longer up, but you can view it on the Wayback Machine. And there was a blog by a UFO hunter. Her name was a play on Samus Aran. It was like Samantha something or other.
Yeah, I remember that.
And these sites would have...
It was Samantha Manus, wasn't it?
Samantha, yeah, that sounds like it. Yeah, Samantha Manus. And she was looking up information that on like UFOs, but they were actually like Ing that she was looking at, and they tried doing this whole alternate reality thing. There were actual NOA spokespeople who were on Instant Messenger chatting with fans about this. I know one guy who was on the site way back, Gonmon. He played around with it and chatted with them. I don't think they developed it very much. And actually, the funny thing about the Halo 2 I Love Bees, apparently if you went through all that work, all you did was just basically get to play Halo 2 like a couple weeks early or something like that. So I think with that, the fun was more in the chase and sort of the advertising that they would bring out as a result of that. But in terms of an alternate reality game, I Love Bees was much better than I Love Metroid Prime 2 or whatever they attempted to do.
It was just like a weak attempt, I guess. But it was funny. And we put it on the site. And oh man, those were the days. But yeah, their advertising campaign has just always been so crappy. But I think that's for another podcast. So I guess we're just going to wrap it up. I did want to mention one last thing. I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show. Jesse has done an amazing job, and he completely revamped the forum. We're so happy to have brought out that new forum for everybody. I really enjoyed the new layout. Do you guys like it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the new layout is great. He put a lot of work on that. Yeah, it really came out really nice. So just stay tuned to our site. To all our Facebook likers, thank you so much. We have really risen over the last year or so with Facebook likers, and I think we're at almost 1,400 likes. Let's see, what are we at right now? Yeah, we're at 1,372. So we're getting more and more likes as time goes by. Really, really awesome fans that we have of our site. We really appreciate you guys coming to the site, liking our Facebook page. We also have that DeviantArt page. We also have the YouTube page, which the YouTube page isn't really used as much as I'd like, but it's still nice to have those.
And then there's that Armstrong Houston guy.
Yeah, we have the Armstrong Houston official Facebook page, so you guys can like that too if you want. All right, guys, thanks for listening to episode 6 of Wavebeam. If you've lasted this long, I really appreciate it. My name is Ryan, also known as Infinity's End. Check out all of our latest site updates on our website at www.metroid-database.com. On behalf of the rest of the group, thanks for listening. See you next mission. What do we do?
Do we have to sing it again?
Yes! That's our thing! I hope you're still recording.
Oh, it's been recording.
Okay. What do we usually do?
It's the dun
Oh, yeah,
dun
I
dun
remember. You guys remember?
dun 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 dun.
We always sing that.
Do we have to do that?
No, we don't have to. You guys are
Okay.
no fun.
Just use the clip from last time.
Alright.
Last time it was just Jesse.
Well, he wasn't here, so
Yeah.
we'll just record Jesse doing it.
We'll find a way to include him.
Or Michael. We can record Michael because he hasn't said anything the entire time. He's just typed it in. So Michael can sing it, and then we can put it in there, and that'll be.